just before my time, that we wanted to do the AIM system versus the little one, which is the drive-by or whatever that's called.
Right, so as part of that project back in 2016, that non-revenue water team we put together looked at all of these different, we do a needs analysis, we do a business case presentment as well as part of that. And we went through that with our team at that particular point in time and came to the conclusion that, they wanted, the AMI would be the best option available to us. Right?
Was it staff team?
It was staff.
Did the staff determine that?
We did also, and I would have to look back at the exact date, but there was a point that we brought this discussion to the village board for some general consensus and direction. And at that time, and I believe it was 2015,
Okay.
at that time, the general consensus of the board was to pursue the AMI
Was there
application.
any resident outreach versus cost? Like, was that before the decision was made? I'm just really concerned because I just want to be sure that our residents are going to get enough benefit, especially if we don't do the web portion, that they're going to pay for, and then we incur higher costs for mailings or for billings and for more contact with, I just want to make sure, like the other communities, it sounds like there's a cost benefit that could be done and that the residents could be surveyed.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest benefit, again, is to our residents to notify them of what's going on and for them to be able to access that. That's why, we put that up as a future. I can tell you, in Madison's case, they wanted to make sure that everything was working properly before they made that part of their presentation. Plus, at that time, Madison's system was very antiquated. They did not have online customer payment. So they wanted to roll that. When they rolled out a customer web presentment, they also wanted online customer payment as part of that. So that's why it was a future, but it was about a year or two after the system was up and running and implemented that they added that as part of it. So it was not right away. It wasn't 10 years later that they added it. It was 2 years later, a year or two after it was all fully run. They added it.
I'm just wondering, when we get to the RFP, it sounds like we're just RFPing for AMI, and in order to get all those costs that I'm talking, it did both, wouldn't you?
We do. As part of the RFP process, we ask for all of the costs up front, for everything as part of this project. So we'll ask for all the costs up front, including that web presentment. And then when we get all the bids back and we analyze everything, that's when we can start to take a look at, does it make sense to do this now as
And not
opposed
for
to
the
later?
drive-by one, you're just doing it for this AMI.
Or AMI, correct. The other future applications is, this meter data management system can then also bring in information from our monitoring system, our SCADA system, the GIS system, and also the hydraulic water model. So instead of right now with our model of the system, we have assumptions made on how people are using water. This will know exactly how they're using the water, and we can put that into the system. So we talked a little bit about the components and the cost. So this is that competitive bid process that we're talking about. So our process that we use at City Water, and we've done this on a number of communities, it's an open architecture style RFP recommended for a complete solution. And we define what that complete solution is. That's the meters, the endpoints, the registers, the AMI, the web presentment, everything in the installation. So they cannot just say, I'm a meter vendor, I've got these meters, here's my bid. Nope, they've got to team up with somebody and be a part of a whole solution. We do that open architecture style because we're purchasing rapidly changing technology. It's like your cell phone. These systems, I can tell you, like I said, cellular is becoming a big item right now. Wi-Fi was just introduced into the technology last year as well. All the system will meet AWWA standards, so all of our meters that we're going to be, competitively bidding have to meet AWWA standards and accuracy standards as well. We establish system goals, the objectives, and performance requirements as part of this RFP. So we let the vendors know, okay, this is what we want to have as part of our system. These are the goals that we expect of our system. If you can't meet these goals, then you need to tell, with the system that they're going to propose, you have to tell us why and what would be the cost to modify your system so that we can meet these goals. And those are really if you want to be on the bleeding edge of this. I get the sense from our discussions with staff, and we don't want to be on the bleeding edge, but we want to be on the leading edge. We want to be able to provide the latest technology to our customers and advantage to our customers if possible. So the open architecture style will allow the vendors to customize a solution that's unique to the village of Shorewood, rather than just pulling a solution out of a box, say, here you go, make it fit into the village. Because we've defined all of these parameters, they've got to customize it to meet our needs. And then when we have vendors compete, the costs go down, especially with our meters and our endpoints. And both of those are 25% of the cost of the project. But I've got a meter vendor that knows they're the only meter vendor that's spec'd, those costs aren't coming down. If I got an AMI vendor that knows that it's just my system that I'm putting in, those costs aren't coming down either. So we want to be able to competitively bid these out so that these vendors will compete against one another. And I can tell you that it does bring down the cost. We had probably about a 15% cost savings in cutting it last year when we bid this out because of that.
When you say customize, I get really nervous. We customized our parking system for our village, and it cost us a lot more money that we'll probably have to go back and change now. So how customized do you need it per unit of government?
So that's part of what we put in there. So again, that's if we want to be on the leading edge, So all these systems can do these hourly reads. Before they came out, they couldn't do hourly reads. Now they all do it. It's really the customizable stuff right now is our meters. So do we want to have temperature and pressure sensors in our meters? They're just coming out with that technology right now. Some of them may bid it, so that would be something that if we wanted to customize it to do it, we could do that. That would cost a lot of money, you're right. And so we say, no, we don't want to have that. We just want to have our regular meters that we know are going to be as accurate. The other things that's kind of a new technology introduced, especially on the meter side, is a automated shutoff valve as part of the meter. So, if you think about how we are going to go about doing these meter changes, we've got to get into the homes, there's isolation valves inside the home, one before the meter, one after the meter, that we have to close so we can pull the meter out. If we can't close one of those, we've got to go outside to a curb stop in the ground that's 6 feet under in a box that might have been installed next to a small tree 50, 60 years ago, which is now a big tree, and it's hard to get on that. Some of these meter vendors now are putting in systems where they have an automated valve that you can actually open and close that valve remotely. So if a customer isn't paying their bill, right, and we give them the notice, we go through the proper notice that they're not paying their bill, we're going to shut you out of water. We can go ahead and shut them out of water right from our desk rather than sending a crew out. That's not really applicable here in Wisconsin because we still have a law that we can roll over any outstanding balance onto the tax roll towards the end of the year. But, there's states out there that don't have that advantage, and so they are putting in the automatically controlled shut-off valve so that they can shut somebody out of water if they're not paying their bill. This process also allows Shorewood to potentially mix and match vendors. So, if you remember that graph, we talked about the 3 different types of vendors that are out there. Let's say we get a proposal from vendor A, we really like their meters, but their AMI system, Vendor B, we really like that AMI system, but their meters, this other one's got some better meters. And this third vendor, their installation was the best. So why can't we get the best out of all 3 of those vendors? And so our open architecture style allows us to say, we would really like these meters with this AMI system and this vendor, hey, can you guys get together and give us the best and final offer and put in another bid? We know their costs up front because they submitted as part of the bid, and we're able to mix and match. And that's part of that open architecture style that we...
So when you had mentioned we're only going to get one, we don't want different bids from all these people, we want one bid for the 3. Who then, if you mix and match, are you going back to say, give us a quote with these 3?
So that's part of the process as we're interviewing these companies, is that we can go back, and generally it's the one that's got the most dollar amount on the project, and I can tell it's going to be the installation vendor because it's 40%. So these installation vendors will be the ones that will probably be the general contractor, let's say, on the bid. They'll be the ones that will be submitting the bid for the most part. So we can go back to them and say, would you be willing to work with them? Sometimes, and this happened in Cudahy's case, it is a meter supplier. So the supplier is the one that submits the bid. They've got the meters, they also have the same AMI system, they just paired with an installation contractor. We can go back to them and say, man, we really didn't like the one that you proposed, could you go back and maybe talk with this one? And they could say, no, we won't do that. And I can say, well, we can't do that. So it really is about, do they want to go ahead and do that? I can tell you that that is exactly how we did the process for the city of Milwaukee that was probably about 22 years ago. And at that time, Badger Meter submitted a bid with, Itron submitted a bid differently. Itron is the read system. They never worked before together at all. We were able to get them to come together, negotiate a deal, and that became the hottest meter and automatic read system on the market for the last, for the first 15 years that I drive by AMI. It was Badger and Itron was the #1 unit. That never would have happened if we weren't able to negotiate out a deal as part of the AMI or AMR project that went into Milwaukee. We've done that. Same thing happened in Madison as well, where we were able to take the best vendors from each of these separate bids, work together with them to negotiate out a new deal that was actually more beneficial to the residents in Madison, and it worked out tremendously. So it really is, instead of just having, well, we gotta take this, we only like certain aspects of it, we can actually get the
Is
best
this
of
to avoid
all the
like
works.
a general contracting fee? I mean, why not just do all 3 bids and then pull together the 3 that you want?
Okay, so you're gonna have all these 3 different vendors working together, and if something's not working right, they're all gonna point fingers at each other saying it's not my fault, it's their fault. And you're gonna have staff and be that general contractor to work through the process. And so there's just a lot of additional costs to that system. And so it's hard to get the vendors then to warranty their product when they're interacting with other vendors. In this case, we've got one person that is, if it's not working, we go right back to that person and say why it's not working. They're the ones responsible. They're the ones we have the contract with. So how do we evaluate this process and select a winning team, I guess? So the evaluation team would review and rank the vendor bids. So that's representatives from village, DPW staff, utility staff, customer service, the people from the village board that want to be on this evaluation team, finance, and the manager's office. That'll be representatives that'll be responsible for reading all these different bids and then ranking them, and then coming together and then discussing which bids we thought were the best. We shortlist the vendors. In Cudahy, we had 6 different bids. We shortlisted it down to 3, our top 3 that we liked, and then we brought it in for interviews. And it's important to bring them in for interviews because it is a lot of money, and it is a very complicated system as we interact with all the different departments. So we want to make sure that each department feels comfortable with the system that we're looking at. So we have them actually do demos during the interview process, and we have staff there to see how they go through the demo to say, oh yeah, I really like that. Yeah, that's pretty easy to go through. Some of them still don't have a really good metadata manager, and it's, well, you got to go through crystal reports to get all this reporting. That's a lot of extra time and effort to do that. It doesn't really give us what we want, but we want to have staff see that, look at that, so that they can make an informed decision as to what product that they like the best. That also then allows us to mix and match to develop a new solution. We then request a best and final offer if necessary, and then if we like it, the evaluation team would come back here and then recommend award of a contract to that vendor.
And if you know of systems that you're saying we wouldn't want, would we just write that in the RP not to propose them?
Again, it's rapidly changing technology. So some systems that proposed, say in our Cudahy a year ago, they might have a whole new system that they put out. Some of these vendors buy up other vendors, and so now they have a different system. So I can tell you it is rapidly changing technology, and so it's difficult to say we don't want your system. And as a public utility, I don't know if we can actually say that.
How long are these usually contracts for? I mean, will they put in upgrades in the
Yes.
contract if it's a 10-year or 5-year?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, they're responsible for doing all the upgrades, and that's part of the cost that we ask for in the long term. In our 20-year cost analysis is, what's the standard cost for the upgrades? You're going to figure that you're going to have server cost upgrades, right? So instead of the utility purchasing, let's say if they decide not to purchase the server and host it on site, those servers, that software gets upgraded on a 2-3 year basis rather than having to purchase the licensing for it. That's just done in the cloud, and we pay an annual fee to that vendor that takes care of all of that. They'll take care of all the upgrades, they'll take care of all the licensing issues, and we just pay a monthly fee to do that. So after we come back to the board here to recommend a contract award, Some of the project challenges, well, this is a new process, and whenever we have a new process, there's always going to be challenges, you know, so from a different way to read our meters, integrated into the billing system, our customer interaction is going to be different. We're going to have to now make appointments to get into all of our customer homes in a relatively short period of time. Those are all going to be challenges. How do we communicate that out to our customers as well? How do they know what they're responsible for before we even get there? We're going to have to maintain a parallel reading system and billing systems until the project is complete. We're still going to have our touchpad system that's in operation while we're going around and doing all these other installs for the AMI system. We're going to have to coordinate and acquire and install and learn how to operate the system. And again, that's going to take some time, training staff, what staff we want to have trained on it. And so those are challenges. Appointments at the customer's home, this is probably the biggest challenge, and the installation work itself. So we've got aging infrastructure. Again, I mentioned when we go in and change the meter, we've got 2 valves that we need to close, one before the meter, one after. You think about the age of the homes here in Shorewood, sometimes those valves work, sometimes they don't work, and the last thing we want to do is break a valve. The homeowner is responsible for maintenance of the valves. We need to make sure our customers know that before the project even starts, that they're responsible, that those valves are working properly.